Hello and welcome to another video. So today we're taking a look at a burn rune of style of deck. So this one is mainly just focused around the burn or storm sort of aspects of it. So mostly focusing on some earth sigil plays, some truth adjudication plays, things like that to really get victories, and having a bit of decent board flood with low cost spells to of course potentially boost things like Zealot. This isn't a Solomon package deck, so it does cut legendaries down a little bit. There are variations on this that also run of course the Solomon variation. I believe this is the one from the SEO Victor recently, so it is a fairly interesting deck and does an okay job on ladder. It's definitely a situational one though until you learn to get the hang of it, like most Earth Rune decks are, so we're going to get right into this and take a look. So our first match is going to be against Dragon. Kicking us off pretty well. I mean, I've had some variety on ladder a little bit lately. It's not as bad as it was in the first week where it was purely just like Rune and Blood basically for a while, although they are still prevalent decks. I'm definitely seeing a shift in the sense that more Sword is popping up, more Dragons popping up, and we're getting at least that little bit of variety. So we're seeing at least 4 to 5 decks pretty commonly being placed in the rotation meta. It's just a matter of where they will be ranked overall, and at the moment I think Rune is definitely placing it right up the top there once you kind of get used to it. It is just a skill-ish style deck. Shadowverse has a pretty low skill cap to begin with, but definitely requires more thinking to get through some turns, and very easy to make some mistakes if you don't do the right kind of ordering, which even I make those mistakes. It's no matter how good you are, you can still make those. This Dragon player had some pretty heavy ramp going on, which is not a huge surprise for Dragon. I mean, that's something they usually want to aim for. Definitely high ramp turns can make a big impact into the game long term. And of course, we go for the Cosmic Flower, one of my favourite plays to make a lot of the time. She's a really good card when you're playing this. Aiolon does a wonderful job just cleaning up at least 2 bodies usually. And even if you can't, being able to have the spell in your hand to use to boost up things like Truth Adjudication definitely works in your favour more often than not. And not too bad to go with this now, so we get the little bit of a boost going on, and a pretty much just fate kind of turn. Also go for the Golem play just as an extra spell boost, since we have already got a half decent hand. I don't really need a big Golem play this game, at least not at the moment. The only problem now is we're running out of hand space to take advantage of. At least I managed to buy us a little bit of time, getting that damage where we need it. Burn is just heavily focused around, of course, dealing damage, so any damage I could get in, especially while our Truth Adjudication are being spell boost, was going to be very important. Like right now, our Truths are looking very healthy, so definitely worthwhile. Especially with a Fiery Embrace, being able to take out whatever we need in the future, so that should be good. Fortunately though, we don't have much of a play outside of just playing a Truth, so that was really all I had. Pure Voice Dragoon, probably going for that heal. Pretty obvious. Definitely a problem since we do want to be able to get past this. But this board should be pretty easy to take down at least. Double Witch Snap would do the job. We've also got the Insight, which I probably should have went for first to be honest, instead of the Witch, since we could have went double Insert or whatever, but we decided to play the Truth Adjudication. I end up also playing the Fiery Embrace again. Ordering would have been better. I just hadn't made the decision until it was too late, really. I probably could have got in potentially 1 more damage or boost, although I could have lost it to healing anyway, so it wasn't the be-all end-all for this match in particular. It just really slowed us down a little bit, which is a bit frustrating, to be honest. But now we have a good chance to both remove this and potentially set up. Again, the healing is a problem, but this deck tends to pack some decent punch long term. So holding on to these isn't the worst case. We are going to start running out of cards though, which will definitely turn into a long-term issue if we don't sort it out soon at least. Alright, so now we have a pretty decent chance with this Tetra on board. We've got at least a half decent body. We've got the Aiolon to do a little bit of boosting for us to get our Zealot down just a tad. and allow us to take out at least most of the board here. We could actually take out everything if we include, of course, the magic missile, so definitely a good chance to wipe the board fresh and really work to our strengths. The only problem is if they can take out whole board. That's really where we start running into some problems, and they've got a pretty decent setup so far to do that. We could also run into the issue, of course, hitting Zoe, where they just run us over with that. And we can't play another clerk, unfortunately. But we can at least keep going for small parts of damage at a time. And hopefully that will help us out. So another White Frost. Definitely a good way to get rid of things if you're interested in doing it that way. Especially with that Blazing Breath there. Kind of ending any hope I had at being able to get in a little bit of damage. So all I can do now really is go wide a bit and hopefully set myself up. That's why I went for the ritual play. So we can try and get at least some damage going here. Because we've got at least 11 damage in hand, actually even more than that if you include Zealot. They are going to, of course, take out our 6 though, so that's a little disappointing. But we might be able to get enough with a half-decent top deck, so we'll wait and see. We've got 2 plus 3 for 5, and we've got at least 4 more, so that is 9. Still not quite enough with just what we have here. That draw was at least okay. We're in with some potential chance here. Double magic missile. So we just need one good play off this golem, really. That's all we would need. So I tried for a double shot at the golem play since we can try and get a ritual, which we did. Ritual is going to allow us to end this game. We also could have done it with the 2 ping from the golem. So really, I had some decent odds once we played that setup. And it worked out just fine. I actually really like coming up with those lethals for this deck. It's a lot of fun. Next up, we're playing against Shadow. Shadow is not super spectacular, at least from what I've seen so far, although there have definitely been some good Shadow decks lately. There is mainly 2 variants that I've noticed, which is the Techno Lord variant, which focuses more on Techno Lord and potentially Prince and things like that, or the Skull Lord variant, which of course is pretty good as well. Actually, I think Skull Lord Tenko is one, and Ceres Prince of Catacombs is another maybe. There is at least a couple of variants that use the same base foundation and really just have a different top end. Either way though, they're interesting in the most part. So, not doing too bad for our opener. We've pretty much secured the early game. We've got a decent Fate's Hand for some draw. We've got a pretty cheap Fiery Embrace, and our Witch Snap will definitely come in handy. The only real thing left is the Aiolon Gloria, which is still really good. We've only got to worry about these Earth Sigils, as we need to probably get a Golem to use those. Unfortunately, we still don't have one. I probably would have been better off with Vesper there, but I did want to save it in case I needed its ping effect to clean up some board space and deal with a follower. So I'm kind of glad to keep that in my hand. Tetra also will do a really nice job when the Evos become available, if I decide I want to use her. But I end up getting a Golem, so why not use it? This will give us a chance to both remove this and fill up the board. So we're looking at some pretty decent plays going forward. Our opponent though, Ceres, is definitely a problem. At least Fari, I should be able to remove it pretty easily. And we're going to get at least 5 things here, so we did end up getting an okay split. Getting 3 Ritual is actually very, very respectable, as you can see by our reaction from the Shadow player. If I had to get anything, Rituals are some of the best cards for us right now. They're really good for damage, and overall really solid to get rid of some Earth Sigils that we could potentially summon. So, set up just enough to use the Fiery Embrace and retain a pretty hefty board. We shouldn't need to worry too much with this. Nicola is not the funnest thing to have to do anything against, but at least we've got a pretty decent setup so far to remove any potentially problematic drops. And we've still got triple ritual in our hands, so we may as well get some damage in while we can. So lowering them by 5 is a pretty good start.
Isn't this a wonderful program? I'll try not to obliterate you completely.
Another Nicola with forbidden strength this time though, and of course they are removed thanks to the effect of Arcus. And they're trying to come up with obviously a way to get rid of this, which makes sense. Removing Tetra, pretty important for them. Without knowing I have Witch's Snap in that though, it won't make a huge difference. Just makes it a little easier. So this way I can use Witch Hunter. I can save the rituals potentially. Also, it's not a too bad a setup as far as getting extra damage in. Plus Zealot of Truth is actually an option, so at this point it's really just a matter of what Truth's Adjudication can do, and if it can do some decent damage, which I believe we've got at least, yeah, a pretty decent boost going on it, so 7 is pretty respectable at this point. We could actually potentially use double Ritual on turn 10 and Truth to do some really good burn damage. The only real problem now are these ghosts. At least they're not going to be on turn 10. We hopefully will end the game before them, since we did go first. And we're still doing pretty well on health, so that's also not a huge concern. It's actually where a chance with Zealot could come in handy. Of course, I decided to go for the Ritual play and Repair mode for some extra boosting. Then for my Zealot, since that makes full use of our points this turn and also gets our Truth's Adjudication up. And it does free me up to use the Echoing Angel next turn with Truth's Adjudication as well, potentially. If, of course, we end up behind on the board. So if our Verdict Ritual of Truth deck doesn't work, which odds are it probably will, then I had that extra backup plan to fill the board a little bit. But, as I said, Truth does a really nice job of cleaning that up and winning us the game. So overall, not too shabby of a deck. It does take a little bit of getting used to if you're not a big Earth Rune player, and it does play differently to, of course, most other stock standard Rune decks that usually is more tempo based. This one I've found typically is more about making sure you can set up and combo well, and also try and keep your health at a reasonable level, which isn't too hard with this deck since it does have some decent swarm ability, and with the current meta the way it is, you're not taking massive amounts of damage unless you're coming up against Dark Feast Bat, which I have noticed this deck can have a difficult matchup against if you don't secure a good early game. So if you guys did enjoy this video and want to hit the like button, definitely do that. You'll find deck lists in the description below. Till next time guys, see ya.